because we're five dudes, like 17-ish years old, in the woods with hammers, and now he's missing a tooth, and his whole face is scratched up and bloody. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Within the Bee. As promised from last week's episode about the giant spider, here's the episode about the loudest scream I never heard. So, it was my brother, this poor victim this day in the woods. So, I'm the oldest of five. Sometimes a babysitter or whatever, no problem. So my brother was, I don't know, like 7 years old, 8 years old at the time. I'm with a bunch of friends and we're making forts in the woods. Always in the woods, riding bikes, walking, running, building forts, having fires, you name it. Having a grand old time. So anyway, we're out there, like five of us. We're between 17 and 20 or something like that. And we have my probably 8-year-old brother with us, and so it's like, oh well, let's just bring him along, and we'll make a fort, with him and all that stuff. He likes the woods. He's a cool kid at the time, and still is, but he's older now. But anyway, so we're in the woods, and it's just a bunch of us on this big tree that like had fallen down, and we're trying to like put smaller trees and big branches like over it, and we're trying to make a fort. And so effectively we're hammering, because we don't have a lot of good equipment. Like we're hammering trees and trying to uproot them, and we're like pulling them out of the ground, and you know what I mean? Like these ones that are, I don't know, like 8 feet tall, maybe a little less, and we're just ripping the roots out and using them for this fort. Well, anyway, I guess my brother, as he recalls, was maybe 40 feet, 50 feet away from us. We're all up on the big, broken down tree that's like laying flat. It has a lot of room underneath, and that's where we're going to make a fort. And my brother is trying to pull some of these same trees out of the ground for us, and we didn't even ask him. We just had him there, and it was fun. And I guess what happened was he had pressed like one of these trees flat on the ground, and he was looking over it, and he was bouncing on it, trying to get it to break or come out of the ground or whatever. And well, what happened was his feet slipped, and this, it was like this thick, this long, skinny tree, got out from underneath the pressure. Smacked this guy in the mouth. Something fierce. We eventually took that tree out of the ground and gave it to him as a present, because his teeth, he had a bite mark in the tree, and he still has it to this day. This was like 10, 12 years ago. Still has it. This thing hit so hard, it left a bite mark in the tree, and one of his teeth came out and landed on the ground, and we had to sift through it in the leaves to find it. We eventually found it, but the scream that he made, imagine this. There's like five of us teenagers on different sections of this massive tree. We're hammering away. All of a sudden, the five of us look up, and we're making eye contact to one another. My brother's out, a bloody mess with this tree branch, but we don't know that yet. There's a disturbance, and we don't quite understand why the five of us popped up at the same time and are just giving each other eye contact, as if to go like, why are we all looking at each other? What's happening? There's something going on, and I can't detect it. And we couldn't for the longest time, and it felt like an eternity of us just sitting there looking at each other going, why are we looking at each other, all five of us collectively at the same time? How is this possible? What's happening? And then all of a sudden, like a helium balloon is letting go, like that little air, like maybe like a tea kettle on your stove, like that air pressure. We heard like that noise just singing through the air. So now we all hear this noise, or like we finally are able to register this noise, and now we're looking at each other like, what's this noise? Like, is the earth about to blow up? I don't know. We're 17-ish, and all of a sudden I hear it gets a little more audible for my hearing, and it was my brother screaming his head off at 8 years old. And so all of them said I made a beeline through the trees, just to my brother, and I picked him up, and I don't know what's going on. I'm like, are you okay? What the hell happened? Like, why are you a bloody mess? And also, I'm trying to get him to be a little quieter because we're five dudes, like 17-ish years old, in the woods with hammers, and now he's missing a tooth, and his whole face is scratched up and bloody. And we're deep in the woods. Bad look. Bad look, right? Somebody comes running over to help, and they're like, hey, why is he a screaming mess? Why is there five dudes in the woods with hammers and like knives and saws and like just trying to, and this guy's a bloody mess? Not a good look. How are you going to explain that to anybody? So we didn't. And then I grabbed him and ran out of the woods like, hey man, you can't be screaming with a bunch of dudes with hammers like in the middle of the forest and you're bleeding out of your face tremendously. And so I calmed him down and all that stuff, and he told me what happened, and from the pain he had stopped crying. Then he realized he lost a tooth, and then he started crying because he literally lost a tooth. It both fell out of his mouth and it's gone. We don't know where it is. So, we cleaned him up. We got back in the woods, and he explained to me the tree that he was trying to break down and all that stuff. And I had a couple buddies, and they're sifting through the leaves, and we found his tooth, and he stopped crying immediately, which was great, thank goodness. And we ripped that tree branch, or the tree, I guess, out of the ground, found his bite mark in the tree. And again, it's like, this thick, and it was like a really tall dowel, and yeah, found the tree, gave it to him as a souvenir. He still has it to my knowledge, and that's nuts. But, yeah, so that was the loudest scream I've never heard in my life, because it was so inaudibly loud and high-pitched that five of us couldn't recognize it as a human voice, So I just imagine this thing clipped him, and he probably, stumbled, and then he hit this note of infinity. Just five of us. That's the follow-up story to last week's episode. Live long and love on. See you next time.